Warning, warning, warning. Oh no, 2 warning videos in a row. Yes, yesterday I came out here and I warned you guys about these bogus virus hunters and how they're bombarding our brains with bullshit once again. The poor masses, they don't know what to do or think about this because they keep hearing the same references over and over and over. Today's warning has more to do with my YouTube channel and is especially for those who are relatively new to my YouTube channel. Although if you've been around for a while, you're going to really appreciate what this video is all about because you understand that my YouTube channel has a little bit of a learning curve because I've put all the pieces of the puzzle together. So there's a lot of information. But there's a reason why you should invest time to learn this because I found the ultimate solution for virtually every problem that is 100% within our control. Of course, the biggest problem is that most of us don't know that most of our problems are within our control. That's the saddest reality of life, is that most of us lack the wisdom to know the difference between a problem that's outside our control and within our control. And it's all by design because of the way the world works. Now you know my whole message is all about that story. That there are powers that be that want the status quo to stay the status quo. So they control us through our health, and then they control us through the loaning of money at interest called usury. Now, what's fascinating about this concept, if you understand how life would have been before the fall of mankind, before that changed our mentality, where we went from a gift mentality to an exchange mentality, started bartering, and ended up now where we are with electronic money, fiat money. When you understand this, you realize that life is just nothing but an illusion. You have to realize, my friends, that if we never made this mistake, if we never made the biggest mistake of all, that changed our mentality, things would be so different on this planet because there are 2 main things that we have to think about here. One would be the vast amount of materials on this planet, and the other would be our labor. And I've talked about this before, and I've used this analogy before, that we could think of this planet like a business. And what I want to do in this video is take a closer look at what this planet would look like as a balance sheet to help you guys put things in perspective. Because had we never made that first mistake, we never would have had the powers that be that are taking advantage of this situation and added an extra piece to this puzzle. Because if we had our act together, every baby that was born would be able to reap all the benefits of their ancestors. Think about that. Why? Because there are 2 main assets involved: materials and labor. Those are the only 2 things. So every generation, people kept building things and building things and building things. So the day a little baby was born, it basically inherited all that hard work that we've accumulated. It was ours, and there were no liabilities. That's the difference. It was all assets. So before the fall of mankind, every child that was born was brought up into a paradise where it took very little work to maintain all the hard work from the previous generations. It truly was paradise, and you kept making it better and better and better. That's how it was for a long time. But then we made a mistake, changed our mentality. Now we have an exchange mentality. Now we use money and think we have to exchange that for getting what we need. And then the powers that be are using money, or the loaning of it. They take control over a country's money supply and start loaning out money, and they add the one piece to the equation that screws everything up: liabilities. You owe money on the interest. Right now we owe more money on the interest than the counterfeiters of the world have that just printed the money out of thin air to begin with. What a scam. The ultimate counterfeiter. I'm going to take over your money supply. I'm going to print your money. Here's $1 trillion. You owe me $1 trillion plus the interest. And the interest is going to build up, and you're never going to be able to pay it back, and you'll just pass that debt on to your children. So now when children are born after the fall of mankind, we inherited debt. We're debt slaves. And this is what John Adams meant, the first vice president of the United States and the second president. It's what he meant when he said, there are 2 ways to conquer and enslave a nation. One's by the sword, and the other is by debt, by creating this liability. Where now it's not a bunch of assets and we inherit paradise. We got this damn liability that now we come in and we owe people and we got to work and work and work. It's an illusion. The illusion of scarcity is one of the biggest things, along with the contagion myth, that the powers that be have to convince us are true. Remember, the ultimate control is health. A lot of it's by the contagion myth, the bogus theory in vaccines and germs. The other is the money. That's the absolute tool of control. Loaning that interest, creating another piece to the equation of liability. When you look at a balance sheet, my friends, your assets equal your liabilities and your owner's equity. If you don't have any liabilities, you have all owner's equity. All assets, all equity. So in the liability, you've got less equity. Got $1 million assets, $2 million in liability, I'm a negative. You see what I'm saying here? So the way things work, if you understood how much money the powers that be have, it's incomprehensible. If you made $1 every second of your life, take you 11 and a half days to make $1 million. Wow, think about that. 11 and a half days. To make $1 billion, 32 years. Trillion, 32,000 years. Here's $1 every second. Boom, 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 boom. 32,000 years later, you got $1 trillion. You got 500 of those. The powers that be have so much. When we look at the global balance sheet and look at what has happened with the paradise we created with our labor and those materials by having someone trick us into this usury game where they're going to loan money at interest, what does the balance sheet look like now? Their assets are so huge, it's incomprehensible. And all of us, we got all these liabilities. We start our journey off in life as a liability. We're born into bondage. We're born into a belief system, a way of life that keeps us in bondage. And all we have to do to break away from this bondage is realize the first mistake that changed our mentality, where we went from a gift mentality to an exchange mentality. So it's so simple, it's mind-boggling. It sounds too simplistic, and if you've never done it, it sure is hard to wrap your brain around it. But once you do it, you realize, yes, there is another level of existence that happens to us when we don't make all 5 of those mistakes, especially number 1, the cooking of our food, the destroying of the biophotons that allows us to feel one with everything. That's a huge contributing factor to why we have the wrong mentality. Added to the serpent in our belly, those 2 are the biggest contributing factors that are going to determine how we're going to behave. And I'm always amazed at how well most of us can behave having those 2 strikes against us. But remember, our behavior is like a bell-shaped curve. A lot of us are doing pretty well with not having as much of that 6th sense as we should or could. And not to mention, we got that crap inside of us. But I'm telling you, it affects a lot of people in really bad ways. And a lot of people are going to say, well, this doesn't make sense, John, because the people who I think are the saints over here on this side of the bell, they're eating all the bad stuff. What you're saying doesn't make sense. No, what you don't understand is there are the extremes. You can have people eating the bad food, low in biophotons, the serpent inside them, and they can still act saintly. But then there's that other side, and that's the thing we've got to realize. That's where the psychopaths are at. They have no empathy. They have no creativity. They steal our patents. They get us to fund embryonic cell research, and they approve partial birth abortions and commit the most horrendous atrocity that you could ever imagine. And it's all because the powers that be control our educational systems. You doctors have to understand what kind of sick people you have that's controlling what you think you know. Do y'all even know what a partial birth abortion is? Oh, it makes you sick to your stomach if you've never heard of it. And why do they do it? To do embryonic cell stem research, so they can figure out how they can be creative. And then, of course, they harvest all the organs of this body, this baby that's full, it's in full term, it's ready to be born, but before the birth occurs, they flip it around so it comes out feet first instead of head first. They let the whole body come out up to the head. Legs and arms are screaming, squiggling around, going, yeah, about to get born. But then they stick an instrument into the base of this baby's brain and suck out the brain. Partial birth abortion. There's a room next door. They take the baby over there and all the organs are harvested. And these people get away with it by saying, we're just going to rent the room. We only need it for a couple hours, but here's $500,000, thank you. This is the kind of people that are in charge. Our hospitals have become temples of sacrifice. Look what they're doing to our little babies. Did you just hear what I said? It's wiggling. And they suck the brain out. And what do they do with the other ones? They inject liquid fire into their veins in the name of health. Liquid poison. It's liquid fire. It's 500,000 times hotter than our blood. Cancer, it comes from an acid burn. This is worse than pouring gasoline on a fire. It's more like adding a flame torch to a match or a candle. That's in essence what they're doing. And it's by design. That's why they want us to eat the animals. They want the animals to suffer. They want us to suffer. The Satanists who rule the world want all of us to suffer. And there's only one way to defeat that aspect of us. We can't cut the edges of the bell off. The bell's got to change. Each and every one of us has a responsibility to realize that none of these systems out there that are trying to solve our problems will ever solve any of those problems, because each and every one of us is the solution to those problems, because those problems are self-inflicted. When each and every one of us change, that bell changes. And then that's when that extreme part of our behavior can no longer control us. Do you understand how simple this is? We get tricked and fooled and thinking they're the enemy. No, the bell is the enemy. Each and every one of us in the bell is the enemy, as long as we keep making these mistakes and contribute to the collective hypoheliosis B. What? It's a learning curve, I told you. Hypoheliosis is a name I jokingly coined, because you shouldn't be naming symptoms anyway. But it stands for an abnormally low biophoton level. Our level should be around 83,000. We're around 1,000 to 23,000. Born at 43,000. It's a downhill journey the whole time. Most important nutrient we should focus on are those biophotons, because that's the fall of mankind when we stopped eating biophotons. Lost one of our senses. Was able to eat food we weren't meant to eat. Now we got a serpent in our belly. Now we got a dark side to our behavior. We got a bell of bad behavior. You got psychopaths on one end, and most people don't want to know they're there. It's scary. And the ones that do, they just think we just got to tell everybody that they're there. No. We do have to stop what they're doing. We got to do away with letting someone else print our money. That damn dollar that was $1 in 1913 when they took over America is now worth 4 cents. By design, so that global balance sheet can be all of them, and us over here, we got all these liabilities. We're born with a liability. You'll be paying taxes forever. The power to tax is the power to control, the power to kill. So, upstream, downstream. Got to be healthy. We got to understand how we're being tricked and what we can do downstream. If you don't want to get into geopolitics, you don't have to, because there's so many other things we can do downstream. Get out there and start planting some food, some gardens. That's one of the most important things we need to do. So when we do get to the tipping point, we'll be able to supply the need. A lot of people think, well, this isn't going to work because we can't do it now. Well, of course not. The demand doesn't exist. It's all supply and demand. Once we reach the tipping point, I guarantee you, there's going to be so much food growing everywhere. There's going to be so much excitement everywhere. And everyone's going to be going, man, now this is a treat.